Hey everybody, welcome to the Get Wealth Podcast. I'm your host, Brennan Wiersma. Please be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Today I'm here with Joshua Steinberg, owner of Next Gen Restoration, also an investor pro, expert in entrepreneurship, all things wealth. So I'm excited to have you here and ask you some questions, man. Thanks for coming on the show.
No, I appreciate it, Brennan. Thank you.
Yeah, so I've been following you on Instagram for a little bit now, and I reached out to have you here because it seems like you're doing something right. And I guess we can just start off with what, when did you start investing or building a business? Where does that begin for you?
Likely right out of high school, as far as investing goes. So I was blessed, fortunately, with the ability to get into door-to-door sales early on in my life, right out of high school. So it allowed me to generate a pretty good income pretty quickly. And then at that point, I was never the guy, skip college. I tested out of school. I went to college to be in automotive technology. So I had already had a job in an auto mechanic garage, doing brakes and oil changes and that kind of stuff. And I was leaving work at lunchtime to go to school for 2 or 3 hours every day and come back in the afternoon to finish everything up. And the more that I went to school, and the professor would tell me to go work on his and other people's cars that were at the college, instead of sitting and listening to the lecture on what a dipstick was and things like that, because I had already been in the I had a job and known what I was talking about. So essentially I tested out very quickly, and it became, I went there to become more educated on what I was working on in cars. I love cars. I'm a car guy through and through to the bone. I've always modified every car I've ever had. And so ultimately what I ended up finding out was, as you go through the process into that realm, is you end up hating working on cars. So it took all the passion that I had in what I thought, everybody always tells you, why don't you go out and find something that you love to do, and you'll never work a day in your life, which can be bullshit. Because you can ultimately take something that you really, really love and find a way to ruin it, which is what ended up happening for me there. So tested out of school very quickly, etc. And we're talking, what is the certificate that we gained going to do for me? And my boss is like, absolutely nothing. It means nothing to us. You're still doing the same job. You're turning the same wrench. Which very quickly alluded to me that I was never going to make another dollar from where I was at right there. That was what it was. I can argue and try to earn an extra 50 cents an hour or something to that effect, but I was never going to become wealthy or live a life of abundance working for somebody else in that space. So I moved on from there. Since I was a very young boy, my mom always told me that I was going to grow up and be the Lay's potato chip truck salesman. I have no idea what the hell that actually means, if that job really, really exists or not. But what ultimately, that circles back for me is going to be that, I was destined to be in sales. So I figured I wanted to go out and be an advertising executive was my goal, looking through Monster back in the day. And came across a company who was going door to door for Fortune 100 companies, AT&T, and the like of that. And sat down, went to an interview. I thought for sure I was going to become Matthew McConaughey. It was sold like in my head. I was 100% how to lose a guy in 10 days. That's my job. I'm going to play football and joke around with guys and come up with an ad campaign for, $2 billion company. And awesome, because that's what the website looked like. I got to my interview, dressed in a suit, all the things. And we go door to door in Cleveland, Ohio in January. So there's 2 feet of snow. I'm in dress shoes and slacks, banging on doors, talking about cable and internet. And at this point, I'm 20 years old, 19 years old, and I have no clue what I'm talking about. But when I come back to finish my interview after a couple hours in the field to see what the job was going to be like, the guy sitting in front of me was a very young guy, had a very, very nice office, and seemed like he was rich. So I'm like, cool, I want to be you. Whatever you got going on, however I got to do to be you. I'm a handful of years younger than you are. So you're telling me I can sit in that seat, be that guy, and have all of this stuff, whatever I got to do it. And ultimately was go door to door in the snow. So Needless to say, I took the job and moved to Kansas City, opened up an office in 2 other states within 8 months, and never really looked back. So this is my first foray into any kind of level of business entrepreneurship. Was everything was branched directly off of door-to-door sales. I think that the country needs to like make that a requirement for kids.
Yeah, it's the sales in particular is a skill that I think is so valuable because if you can learn to sell something really good, like there's not really a limit on that, right? You can just sell everything. Like you could just keep selling and then your income can be however much you sell. I mean, it's obviously not that simple, but that skill I think can be really valuable. So what was your experience like going door to door? Were you good at it? Was it difficult in the beginning? Did it translate into what you're doing now? Like, how did that go?
Sure. So my business that we're talking about is Next Gen Restoration. I've built blue collar contracting companies now 3 separate times from $0 to $10 million a year in revenue.
Wow.
It's very easy for me. So now
Awesome.
those are my coaching clients. So now I take the guy that's a slave to it, that's a plumber, him and a helper, and teach him how to build out employees and processes to where he can make $200,000 or $300,000 a year as the guy that's going and changing hot water tanks and things like that. Be Bob the builder, but it's way cooler to be Bob the guy that sits on the beach while the builder goes and does all the stuff, and you still make $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 or more if depending on the level of how we want to structure the business. But if the goal is to just keep the same level of income but work less, super easy. My services aren't horribly expensive for that aspect of it, but door to door. So that's what we do. So my main business there is door to door for roofing, siding, gutters, windows. We have a storm that comes through, blows roofs and shingles off for everything. I took all of everything that I knew and learned in that business, and we inserted it into a product that wasn't $135 a month, but was an average ticket item of $15,000, where the insurance company is going to pay most of the bill. Homeowner's going to put up $500 to $1,000 of their own money for their insurance deductible. Now they got a new roof that's getting put on for nearly nothing, and all we had to do is I had to teach a bunch of savage guys to go out and do what I was doing, for my $130 commission. So now my average commission to my sales guys I had a couple guys made $500,000 last year. Average tickets like $1,500 commission. So same process, same everything. It worked really well. It was we were working for Fortune 100 companies back then. So why reinvent the wheel on a business that was obviously set up, organized, all the moving parts that had it all figured out. I'm not going to be the cocky guy that goes, "Hey, I think I can do it better." One of my coaching clients, that's a roofer in North Carolina, that's unfortunately one of his biggest downfalls. I got to yell at him like every day. It's like, "Hey man, no, I work from this company, that company, that company. I got all these like little things, but you know what? I can do it better than every one of them. And I want to do. I got a special thing." And I'm like, "No, stop trying to fix it. All you have to do is model." So Russell Brunson, a big thing that Russell Brunson always says is that ClickFunnels is all about taking a funnel that's working, you model it, so we copy it without copying it because of copyright laws. So you model everything so it looks almost nearly the same, and if you can be 80% as successful as the one that's making $2 million a day in revenue, if you could do a quarter of that, would you be super successful as a guy that came out? You're like, yeah, of course, that would be awesome if I could make that level of income. Like, cool. Why would you try to change anything then? They figured out a way to do it. They spent the money to do it. They've perfected it. Now do it, not quite exactly, but really, really close to what they have. Every coach, I probably spend $100,000 to $200,000 a year in coaches for me to get in rooms and around the right people and sit at the tables. So, last year I spoke on stage at GrowthCon. After GrowthCon, I sat with Grant Cardone and a handful of other guys at a mastermind that he did immediately following after that. That's a $50,000 ticket right there to sit at a room for 12 hours. And but out of that, I have acquired a handful of coaching clients. One of the guys that was there now lives in the same city as I am and just sold another company for $50 million. And the relationships that we build at these things are, if it's one of those, if you don't work it, it's not going to work for you. You'll never get the value out of it. But everybody's so scared to put that little bit of money in. College is so expensive. Oh my God, everybody's got student debt. But if they realize that the $60,000 in debt that they had for going to school for 4 or 5 years of party, that guys are out spending $100,000 a year and getting absolutely no degree. They don't get a piece of paper. They're not going for that. It's a mindset tweak of where the value proposition comes from.
Yeah, that's That's so interesting. And like going back to you being in those rooms with all those people, it almost seems like when you're talking about a mindset, there's just like some certain characteristic or ingredient that like obviously you and like Grant Cardone and all these guys have. What do you think that is? Is it just like that big picture side way of looking at things, or like how would you describe that?
I mean, it's a level of, it's a life of abundance. It's a life, a mindset of, if I can help, Brennan to become better and make another $100,000 this year, Brennan's not taking $100,000 from me by me teaching him to make another $100,000. So when you get in these rooms, there's nobody's pulling punches. Nobody's like, hey, I got my secret and I'm going to tell you everything but this one really common, like super awesome thing. Everybody wants to give everybody all of the information because there's no such thing as competition in those rooms. That nobody can win more. At the end of the day, really the conversation in those rooms is, how do we elevate everybody in the room? A rising tide raises all ships. And so how do we all do things better? I sometimes in those rooms I sit with competing companies that do the exact same things that I do in the similar markets or the same markets, et cetera. And so then it's, how do we together, we both have a problem. Every business has a problem. So, okay, what is a problem that we share together? Okay, we both have this problem. All right, well, why don't we work together to solve that problem? Because if either one of us comes up with the answer, now we both have one problem solved in our entire business. And that by itself covers the cost of entry into these rooms most of the time.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, it makes sense that it would cost so much because, I mean, the value I can only imagine, like even talking to you right now, it's like the value's coming in hot. So when you get a whole room full of people that are just so wildly successful, it's like so there's that saying of like, if you're around the 5 people the longest amount of time, or the 5 people you're around the most, or the kind of what you end up being, I feel like if you're in a room like that, that transition is just so much quicker because those people are just vibrating at a different level. So as far as like your journey to getting to here, so you got that job door knocking. So then you just started creating your own businesses from there, or how did that go?
So initially what happened was my stepdad was in commercial construction. So he had a company that did commercial construction. 2007, 2008, 2009, all of a sudden the economy goes haywire. All these commercial clients that were building out Burlington Coat Factory, Walmart, things like that, they all stopped. Anything that was getting built at that moment immediately halted production. Anything that was scheduling contracts for 6, 8, 9, 12, 18 months out, that were getting ready to be, a new build, everybody stopped immediately. So contracts that were just like the ink hadn't dried on, that were all getting ready to be done for $2, $3, $4, $5 million contracts, just went out because the economy completely shifted. Everything went haywire. They're shutting down, they're closing stores now, so they don't need to build new ones because they're getting rid of old ones. And so my stepdad calls me up. He goes, hey, a friend of a friend of a friend is in this thing with insurance companies, and nobody's got money right now, but the insurance company's got billions of dollars sitting in a slush fund that pay out on claims. And so supposedly, if there's somebody that has damage, most of the time people don't realize that they do, or don't realize that their homeowner's insurance is something that would cover for that. So we have to go out and actively find them. And so as an old business that he was operating with 2 employees, it's something that he's just writing, 10,000 estimates for. He gets a report in with a bunch of people that are doing work, write out estimates based on blueprints. Boom. Somebody says, yeah, I'll hire you. Awesome. There's the next job. There wasn't a direct, door to door per se aspect to the hunting and gathering of new business. And so he's like, I have no idea what's going on with that. No clue. I know that I have workers. I know how to find people that can do the work and install it and handle the production. But if you want to come in and do all the front end stuff, find sales guys, build sales guys, go find the jobs and design all of that, he's like, this could work. We'll just split everything down the middle. And so for the next 48 months, we built out the business there. And then shortly thereafter, the business was operating so well that he built a house. We built him a house in South Carolina for a few $1 million, and he essentially retired. And so built that company up to 10, 12, $14 million a year in revenue kind of deal, super easy. And then working in business at some point here always crisscrosses you into the aspect of how do you work with family and all the things like that. So needless to say, the partnership had reached a point where it needed to either one of us had to go away, or we had to dissolve it, or we had to sell it, or whatever. And so I chose to go ahead and take my guys that some parts that we had and separate it. So we split the company in half essentially. I reincorporated as Next Gen Restoration. They stayed as they are. They're still 2 miles down the road from me in Cleveland, and now we compete in the same market. But it is what it is. There's, like I said, at the end of the day, there's plenty of business to go around, and nothing proves that more than them doing. They don't quite do $10 million in revenue anymore. But I mean, they do all right. Your average contractor does between $1 and $3 million. So if they're doing 5 or 6, they're still doing pretty well as far as contracting goes. But the first year that we, after we split, we did $6 or $7 million, and I don't think we've done less than 10 or 11 in the last handful of years anyway.
Wow.
So that was the process with that, and then all of the money that I take from this bucket of roofing and as a retail business essentially, and we take that and we put it in and we invest it, and whether that be Bitcoin, which I actually haven't really gone down the rabbit hole of yet, or stocks, or real estate happens to be my go-to, as being somebody that was tied to Grant Cardone 8 years ago. Obviously that's all he does is multifamily, and so same thing. He's a smart guy. He's got a life that I want a jet. He's got a jet. He lives in $1 million house. I want $1 million house. He drives a Rolls. I want a Rolls. So why would I change what's going on? His deal is my deal. So Grant does multifamily. It's got boatloads of content out, like we're talking about right now on YouTube. That's completely free to go out and Google any bit, which way you want to learn on the subject matter. And so I consumed that for 2 years, and then started, jumping on with local realtors, local brokers. What's going on? What's going on? Let's walk a property. What property makes sense? Talking to banks. Hey, do you guys like this deal? Do you not like this deal? Seeing which ones make sense. And, one of the rooms that I happened to buy into to get into, that was there with a group of real estate guys, had a couple buddies that are now buddies of mine. And, when it came time to, for them to do their next deal, the conversation became net worth, liquidity, all the things that I had from my roofing business. So now I became a good JV partner for them on my first couple of deals. I took a small slice of equity, put my name on the loan, and got operational experience. And, the first couple of deals, we didn't make nothing at the end of the day, but I got what the banks need to see, so that now third, fourth, fifth, sixth deal, I don't need co-signers. I don't need partners that have their, already been in the game for a while. Now I look like I've been in the game for a while, because I've, purchased, acquired, rehabbed, refinanced, done all the processes with partners. And so if I take 20% of the product, and, farm out the other 80% of the deal, the bank doesn't look at me as a 20% partner. They look at me like my name's on the line of the loan. So I own it. I do have other partners in the deal, but as far as my ability to perform in the future, now I have a resume that shows, that I'm able and capable. So, from then on, it was just, now it's a matter of trying to find people that want to sell their stuff that's not foreign money for like crazy cheap, which is a whole other product conversation for a completely different day.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like how you said earlier that you kind of use these systems that are already in place, and then talking about Grant Cardone, it's just almost like you're plugging in your piece of the equation, like you're just emulating it with real estate or whatever that is. Real estate's the one that particularly interests me. I've been reaching out to all these different real estate investors because it's like all I think about now ever since I talked to someone about it. It seems so clearly the best way to build wealth to me. Would you agree, or what do you think about that?
It's the best way to shelter wealth and not pay taxes.
Oh, okay.
So I knock on wood, am not one that pays the IRS much of anything, if anything, at the end of the year. Mostly because of real estate. Real estate allows you to take advanced depreciation. We do a cost seg analysis, and so I can take 30 years of depreciation, shrink it down, and take it in that 1 year's time frame. So all of my active income that comes from Next Gen or anything else that actually had good profit onto it, I can then take something that on paper looks like it was dog shit and just like the worst property I could have ever bought, when in reality I'm putting a new roof, window, siding, gutters, all the stuff that the bank gave me the money for anyway. It's not anything that's losing me money now, but I can take what you would have written off and split up over 15 to 30 years, take it all in year one, just like advanced depreciation on a Range Rover. The whole reason people buy Range Rovers is because there's a certain weight level, and at that weight, you can rate the whole purchase price off year one. Well, same thing ended up happening here with the cost seg analysis. So you take $800,000 in capital repairs to a property like that. And then now you can take, and per your equity, so if I own 55% or 70% of a property and I get $800,000 in depreciation that can be written off, I can then take $500,000 of that. Even though we didn't lose anything, whatever money I put into the property is still secured. I still own the property. In 2 to 3 years, I'm going to sell that property for double what I had into it, and it's going to give me, $1 million in profit. But on paper, I can show that I lost $500,000 on that. So I got $500,000 of income in this bucket from NextGen. I have $500,000 in losses from here. We put those together. Now I owe $0 on that $500,000 of income that I had over here. So if you think that, at the end of the day for real estate, if I have a $500,000 in profit that I have to get rid of, instead of giving $100,000 of that to Uncle Sam, or $200,000 of that to Uncle Sam, I can take that same $100,000 or $200,000 I was going to put in that bucket to my taxes, and I can then now take $200,000 and go buy that with debt and leverage and all the things like that. I can go buy $1 million apartment building. So I can go buy roughly 30 doors in an apartment building, advance my depreciation, et cetera, like that. So take the $200,000, basically put it in a savings account with a property title to it, take the depreciation off of that and wipe it out. So this year I owe $0, and I have $200,000 in savings that went there that in theory is going to have like a 3x multiplier in 72 months and take back, all of the money. Situation for that is when we go and sell that property or anything like that, now we don't have that 30 years of tax savings that we can say, hey, we got depreciation to offset this. Now you have capital gains on all of the money. However, as long as you stay active in real estate and you never stop. So when in 10, 20, 30 years, I got $100 million in net gains in real estate, if I stop buying and cost sagging property and doing these tax haven activities, what'll happen then is I'll have $100 million in profit that I have to pay capital gains on all of that because I've already cost sagged. I already took all the tax benefits from all those properties the year one that we bought them.
Yeah.
So my process is buy 3 properties a year. One of them we cost seg for all the tax benefits on all of it. 2 of them we keep long-term for, normal tax, normal stuff that we're going to write off over 30 years so that when and if we ever sell or liquidate, I can still take the tax savings from those and creatively work it out to where maybe not wipe it back to 0 again, but we can always work backwards to a lesser tax liability.
Whoa. You literally just blew my mind. That's awesome. Yeah. That's like a system that most people don't think that way, right? It's like this level of planning that is like the entrepreneur. I don't know how to explain it, but it's like really common with people that are super successful. When I'm talking to them, it's like they're just talk a different way. It's so cool to see. So how much real estate are you invested in right now? Are you pretty leveraged? Do you have a lot of properties that you just buy and hold? Are you flipping them? Like, what's your process like right now?
So everything I have has definitely got a boatload of debt on it. Debt's usually about 70% loan to value. And then any cash that we have outside of that, none of mine. So I don't have a boatload of my personal cash sunk into anything because in order to buy and be lendable to the banks, you need to have a certain level of liquidity, usually 10% of the value. So you go buy $1 million apartment, you need to have $100,000 liquid cash in your bank account in order for the bank to go, okay, cool, we can lend you on this deal. Once you hit over like a $5 million, $10 million deal as far as that goes, then you start to shrink down your requirement on your liquidity. And then your net worth has to be even to the value of whatever property it is. So same thing. So you want to buy $1 million apartment, you need to have $1 million in net worth, liquid net worth, and then 10% of liquidity cash in the bank. So I'll go find other people, buddies that have IRAs and all the stuff, self-directed stuff. And we say, hey, I need $250,000 to go buy this $1 million apartment. So I'll give you 10% guaranteed money on your cash today for the next 12 to 18 months. So usually we refinance or sell the property in 1 to 2 years. So 12 to 18 months is the goal exit to refinance. So have the bank, whatever improvements we need to make to the property, we'll go ahead and take care of that in the first 18 months. And so 18 months on the line, we have now all the units are rented, everything's been turned, we've upped rents. So what we bought it for valuation, we've forced depreciation onto. So if it was $1 million building, then now it's worth $2.3 million. The bank's going to lend me 80% of that back. Excuse me. So the bank will give me 1.9.
Yeah.
So I'm in for $1 million. I got 1.9 that they're going to give me. I can pay the initial $1 million loan off. That leaves me a $900,000 spread. And so that initial $1 million that we had, 200,000 of it was to my private investors. So the bank only gave me 800,000. 200 grand of it was to pay back, Steve and Mike and Jimmy, who gave me the money to buy the property on acquisition. Mm-hmm. They get paid every month out of the cash flow, 10% guaranteed cash, broken down for the year. So 200 grand will give them a guaranteed $20,000 exit monthly payment. 12 to 18 months, they get the whole full check for what they had back. Then usually I give about 5% equity in perpetuity forever. So they're paid back 12 to 18 months. They made 20%, 10% guaranteed on their money. So I made $20,000 there. I made $800,000 in net real proceeds from the loan. And so because it's loan proceeds, none of that's taxable because I owe that money back to the bank. So it's tax-free completely. So 800 grand at times 5%. Now they get an equity kicker on that. They get another $50,000 check on top of their 20 grand they did. So now they got a $70,000 payment within 2 years on a $100,000 investment. All their money's paid completely back, and they made an extra 70 grand. I'm still at the end of the day, after we pay everybody off, I just took $500,000 tax-free, put it in the bank. And then, the property cash flows for the rest of its life. Tenants are in it. It's fully rented. It's fully remodeled, all the things. I can keep it 8 to 10 years. And 10 years down the line, we've paid off the loan for 10 years. Rents have gone up incrementally, 10% every year. So at the end of 10 years, same thing. We took now what was a $2.2 million property is now worth $3.1 million. We've paid the debt off for 10 years because of that. So then $2.2 million in debt that we had is really now 1.5. So you owe 1.5 on the property. We just got an appraisal now again for 3.1. Bank's going to give me 80%. We take a $2.8 million check. We pay off the 1.5. You take $1 million, now do the same thing you did last time. Only you don't have private money to pay anybody out anymore.
Whoa. That's crazy. Yeah, but it's like no one's losing in that. Everyone is getting an extremely good deal. And a lot of that probably is finding a house or a property that's going to cash flow, right? Because you got to be able to find one that's not going to have all these underlying stuff and cost more than you planned. But it almost seems like not owning real estate, you're losing money. Like it's costing you more to not own it than if you were to take out a loan or find someone or, you know what I'm saying? Like the equity, the cash flow, it seems like such, if you can figure out a way. I mean, in the beginning, it's probably hard too, because if you don't have a lot of equity, like you were saying, so you used your business as equity initially to get started?
I use my business initially to use as my net worth.
Okay, then
so I had a $4 million business, so I could buy up to a $4 million property. Mm-hmm. But somebody that had their house, then you move out of your house, you buy another house, you maybe rent your house. So I also leapfrog my first 5 single family homes. First house I bought, when I moved out of that into my new house, I put a tenant in it that covered the mortgage, kept that house, put it on a 15-year. Now, that property never made me a nickel ever. I had a crazy mortgage on it because I shrunk it down to a 15-year mortgage, but it was paying a big chunk of what the note was down every month because I had a short mortgage on it. And so tenant, all the things, everything goes, it pays itself. You do that 2, 3, 4 times. And then, in 10 years, you got everything paid half off. You got $100,000 in equity times 4 or 5 houses. There's a $500,000 in, net worth that you'll have.
Yeah, that's cool. If you were starting out without a business, right? So for someone watching this who's like, that sounds, amazing. I want to get invested in real estate, but I don't have a $4 million business. What advice would you give to them? Like, where would they start?
In the same place that I did. Only the difference is that you're a different moving piece in the puzzle. The guy that brought me the deal that connected me in my first deal that was there, I was the money guy bringing in the net worth to acquire the deal. Mm-hmm. And I took 25% of the property. The guy that brought the deal to me took 55% of the property, had none of his own money into it, and had an active job to go and find the sellers of the property. So he didn't sign for it. He didn't have a dog pony in the fight. He wasn't able to qualify for the loan. However, he was the guy that was like, hey, dude, if you can sign for this loan, we can do all that. So, at the end of the day, it's about assembling your moving pieces. You got to have the cash. So you have to have a guy with the money. You have to have the guy with the net worth. Then you have to have the guy that's got the deal that you could buy in the first place. So if you're the guy that buys the deal in the first place, you don't have to have any money or anything else. You just need to go to it, yell it from Facebook and the world. I got a $2 million property that I right now have under contract for 1.7. And you will have people blowing you up in the DMs to say, I got cash, I got net worth, I can do the deal. And, same situation, maybe because you don't have a network where you're going to be able to, come from a place of power to say, I could go to 5 different people and sign for this. So I want more money. You're going to do that first deal. You're going to say, cool, I'll take 20%. So you say, cool, 20%, you're going to show me how to do all of it, all the stuff like that. All I had to do is go and find it. And you can go and find those deals as easy as literally driving around your area that has where you live, look for apartments that have for rent signs in the front yard, pick up the phone and call the for rent signs and go, hey, dude, I think I want to buy your property. Would you be open to selling it? And 50% of the time, you're going to get an 80-year-old guy on the other line that owns the property, is the property manager himself. And he's going to be like, I hate this property. I don't want to deal with tenants anymore. I've done this for 30 years. I'd love for you to buy my property. And that's more often than not, that's the way that these things are going down.
Yeah. I actually, today I just started looking into wholesaling and what that's all about, because that's almost wholesaling, right? Wholesaling is more of like you find the deal and then you just give it off and take a fee. What you're saying is you're more a part of the deal, but you're also bringing the deal to the table.
It's the same thing. It's a wholesale deal. The
okay.
situation at the end of the day, the wholesale, you're going to break down your ability to collect what you would call a commission.
Yeah.
Now your commission can be, like you said, it can be a fee, cash. I'll give you the whole property and walk away. I want nothing to do with it. Or you can say, hey, you can still take even a small fee on a wholesale deal like that. Give me like half of what I would have normally done, and then give me a 3% equity kicker and let me ride, sideways on this thing with you. Show me what's going on it eventually. And you do 2 or 3 of those, and you can, build up enough, same thing, balance sheet. You've watched enough things happen to where now when you get a deal like that, you can come from a more of a place of power because you've ridden shotgun on a bunch of these deals to be able to go, I have that guy's buyer's network now. I know who he's going to call or shop this to, or what we're going to do, all the things. And he's happy because you brought him 10 deals over the last couple of years to ride shotgun. So he's made his money off of you. And if you squeak a deal off on your own and utilize a couple other people, you're probably, just because of human nature, going to have a guy that's butthurt about it. But more often than not, you're going to have a guy that's like, all right, man, dude, congratulations.
Yeah. Because like you were saying, the guys that really know what they're doing, they're not really competing with you. Like that's already their system. So how much real estate do you own right now, if you don't mind me asking?
Not a problem at all. There's a 5 million view TikTok video with it out there with a buddy of mine. A buddy of mine, Austin's a TikTok fajillionaire on there like that. So I have 2,500 doors right now worth about $50 million. I'm a little guy.
You're a little guy? 2,500 doors worth 50 million. I can't imagine.
Well, at the end of the day, what you have to look at is the rooms that I currently sit in, and I always and I participate. So around in my circle of influence, my group of friends, the people that I hang out with, $40-50 million in property is I'm the little guy. Guys are $250 million is like the average, and you got guys that are upward in the realm of $1 billion. So Tim Bratz is a buddy of mine. He's I think we just in that video it was like $290 million he's got worth of property, 4,600 doors. But that's the thing, man. You can either be the biggest fish in your little tiny pond, and you can feel like a badass saying, "Hey, I got a $10 million contracting company." Like that's cool, But that was cool to me 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I was like, "Heck yeah." 15 years ago, I was like, "If I could only make $100,000 a year, man, I could live like a king." So what you end up learning is that life has got layers. Once you hit that number, you're like, well, this is stupid. This isn't even remotely what I thought this was going to be like. So you get to 100, you're like, okay, screw 100. I need 500. And then you're like, okay, well, 500 was cool. Where's $1 million? And you're at $1 million. How do I get to 5 million? So, my mentor, one of my mentors, Mark Evans, just sent out. He just did for Christmas. He sent everybody a big cardboard blank check, and our task was to write in the next 5 years a liquid number, check to ourselves for a liquid number of cash that we'd have in the bank. And so my new liquid net worth number is $25 million cash in the bank. And so some people would be like, ha, that's crazy. That's an absurd number to have, all of the above. Really, I'm like, I think that's more like a 12 to 18 month goal. Why am I waiting 5 years to put $25 million in the bank like that? Why am I waiting to find a way to not fly commercial right now and deal with everybody's bullshit with masks? I need $12 million so I can go buy a jet. And when you start to think about find the problem that you have and then work backwards to engineer a way to come up with the cash to justify the means, life's just it's ones and zeros, and it becomes so much simpler.
Yeah. I mean, when you put it that way, it makes so much sense. And I think that's like going back to that common characteristic. I don't know if everyone has it, but like, I feel like a lot of people would get to having 2,500 doors and this net worth and just, I mean, they probably wouldn't get there, but if they did, they'd just be like, oh, okay, now it's time to sit on my ass and drink Mai Tais on the beach, you know? But
well, but this comes back to that level. So agreed, from somebody sitting in a position that goes like, that must be nice, that sounds really cool, that's awesome. They don't understand that in order to get to a place where you have $50 million in assets, you're a half a move, you're 1.5 moves away from going bankrupt. Any move that I make at the scale that we make decisions, any one of them is a $25 million swing. So if I swing and miss at $25 million, my $50 million isn't shit. It's a different game if we're at $50 million in $100 increments and I make $100 decisions. But let's be realistic. Is it possible, if you're making $100 decisions, making $100 plays, to ever be sitting on $50 million? It's not possible unless you win the lottery, at which point you're going to spend that in a weekend anyway, because that's what people that win the lottery do. So, but that's the thing. I don't have a choice. I have to keep moving, because when you start to acquire certain things, unless I'm 70 years old and I'm selling off all my stuff and I'm just going to sit on my cash and spend the money I want to spend until I die. I'm a 35-year-old guy. I got 60 years of life to live.
Damn, you're 35. I mean, you look like you're 25, but still, like, having that much, that's inspiring, man, dude. I love talking to people like you, because it just like puts a fire under me, where it's like, that's what I want to do, like you're such a high speed dude. Like, most people don't understand that level, and so when you talk to someone, it's like, okay, yeah, that's how it's, that you got to have that. So like, your long-term goals, you want to write that check, you want to have a plane. Where do you see yourself like 20 years from now? Are you going to be pulling back a little bit, or?
I mean, 20 years from now, I would think that we're probably in that realm, like you just said. Cashed in some of our chips, everything is done, and it's what I call unfuckwithable. At that point, I can get sued, I can have all the bad things happen, and assuming that over the next 20 years, I don't take any huge setbacks, and we continue to chug along like we are, in 20 years, it doesn't matter what will happen. The money that we've generated and businesses that we'll have built and sold and acquired, and all the things that I have on my plate right now, just continuing to do more of what we're doing, it wouldn't matter what happens. The economy won't matter. It wouldn't matter who the president is, etc. What would matter is my decision making between here and there. My ability to, like you said, to not let off the gas for 20 years, because it's easy. It's really easy to go, dude, I feel good. I'm in pretty good shape. It's really easy for me to go, I don't feel like getting up and going to the gym today, because I get up, I get in the shower, I get out of the shower, I look in the mirror. When I look in the mirror, I go, I look better than 95% of the guys that are my age at this point. I don't have a beer gut. I don't drink a boatload of stuff. I don't eat dairy, gluten, eggs. I don't eat any of this stuff that's bad for you. But those are conscious decisions that I have to go out of my way to make every single day. Those are conscious choices every day. I had one of my sales guys asked me this when I was in the office 2 weeks ago. He's like, dude, how do you stay motivated? And it's kind of the direction that I think you're going right now in the conversation we're having. And I had to explain to him, I said, well, you tell me, what is motivation? Let's start at the root of the question that you just said. And so when you define motivation of what it is, people want to say they don't feel motivated. It's a feeling. I feel excited to go do something. Therefore, I am motivated to do it because I'm excited to do it. When in reality, those are two completely different things. They have nothing to do with each other. One doesn't describe the other. Motivation is purely broken down to, it is a physical choice to do something or to not do something. When the means outweigh the ends, you make a choice. I'm either going to get out of bed and go because I know that's what I need to do in order for me to continue on the path that I'm wanting to go. And in my long-term goals to achieve those things, I have to do these micro decisions that I'm making right now. Can I screw that up for a day here or there? Absolutely. We're human. It's going to happen. But if I wake up every day and I go 5 days a week, dude, I don't have motivation. I don't feel like it. I don't want to. what ends up happening is we revert backwards and we go back into, a reptile brain of just like, give me safety, give me 3 squares a day, hot in a cot, and put me in jail. I don't want to mess with anything. I don't want to have communication. Just put me in a cell and make sure I don't die, which at that point I'm dead already.
Yeah. I think you just said one of the most important things that someone can, understand is like really what that comes down to is discipline. Motivation is what feels good. Discipline is what is good for you later, like doing things. Everyone, I feel like there's this saying, it's like, do what makes you happy. I think that's true, but what makes you happy isn't having the cheeseburger right now, because that ultimately is just bad for you and is making you gonna feel unhappy. What makes you happy is, like you said, you get out of bed in the morning, you go to the gym, you eat healthy, you go make a bunch of money, and afterwards you made the sacrifices and you were disciplined, and now that's actually what makes you happy. Because I think right now it's for you. I don't know, I can't speak for you, but it seems like you're in a spot where you are happy with the decisions you made and the sacrifices that it takes to get to where you are. So yeah, if anybody listening, I think discipline goes a long way. What does your daily routine look like? Do you have a certain things you just do every single day?
So this is complicated for me. My daily routine was drastically different pre-COVID and all the things like that. So when I was what you would call a highly paid employee to myself, working daily in NextGen, which I exited that business a little over a year ago now, the day-to-day business that was there. So when I was that guy, my routine was up at 4:30 in the morning, in the gym at 5 to 6. I work out. 6 o'clock I come home. Get with the wife, we shower, get the kids ready for school, get them to school at 7, 8 o'clock, I'm at the office, 8 o'clock to 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. I'm at the office, come home and eat dinner, go to bed. So that's I'm on the come up drive. That's I don't have $50 million in real estate. That's I need to do what I got to do right now to have what I can't have down line. One of the things that was told to me when I was going door to door to have the office that I wanted, right? So when I wanted to be Don McConville, that's the guy we're speaking about right now, own the office, the business that I was working for, at that time at 19 years old as an employee. I want to be Don. For me to be Don runs a meeting every Friday for an opportunity. In order for me to be, here's what you need to do. And it was drilled into my head. You need to be willing to live like a pauper in order to eat like a king for 5 years, in order to live like a king for the rest of your life. And so first 5 years, you're going to work 72 hours a week. And that's going to be your life. You're going to make the sacrifice. You're going to miss anniversaries, birthdays, dinners, all the things that has to go into it. And you're going to make a boatload of money in that time. In theory, if you're any good at anything that you're doing, the whole point of doing is to generate income. And you're going to reinvest that money, and you're going to put that money aside, and you're not going to touch that money. And in 5 years of making good decisions with that money, with the decisions, having the motivation, decision, the discipline to get up and do what you need to do, at some point, you need to then have somebody like a wife to be able to pull you out of that space and go, we have made it. Let's enjoy the journey, embrace the journey, and stop making $100 decisions. Let's move on to a point where you're making $500 decisions. And anything below a $500 decision, you don't answer the phone for. And so, that for me was a year and a half ago. Now I make 10 times the money. I work an hour a day max, if that, on average. Work. So it's a full day. I get boatload of sleep where I didn't get any sleep. I get up, I go to the gym, I come home from the gym, I hang out with my kids, and I make 1 to 3 intelligent decisions a day. But those intelligent decisions that I'm making are generally $100,000 to $1 million decisions.
That's crazy. That's so cool. It just goes to show, like, put in the work early, because you want to do that sooner than later. Yeah. You can work.
Ideally.
Yeah, you can work your whole life and then retire, but then you're like, what, 60 years old, and now you can't go mountain biking and jump out of airplanes that you could do in your free time when you're, a lot younger. So
one of the big things is to not be willing to settle. And so you have to decide what your worth is personally and what you're willing to do and not do in order to acquire exactly what you want.
Mhm.
And so, like, currently right now, I'm sitting in a closet in an apartment in Kansas City because a year ago I lived in Cleveland. When we moved to Kansas City, what do I have to do in order to have the house that my wife and I want? We nearly had to build it. So it was a 9-month process. So between there and there, we moved very quickly. We picked what we wanted. We know exactly what we wanted. Cool. We actually close on the house Friday next week, and should be moving next Saturday. However, currently I moved my family from a 7,000 square foot house in Cleveland, Ohio, to a 895 square foot apartment with my wife and 2 kids and 2 dogs that nearly want to make us kill ourselves every single day because there's no space. We're all up each other's asses, etc. However, my wife and I are extremely acutely attuned to exactly what we want. We walked through the house, we looked at a bunch of houses, we said, this is the house that we need to have. What do we have to do to buy it? Okay, we make an agreement with the contractor and the builder. What's the soonest we can get in? Can we give you more money to accelerate the process? They say no. Well, okay, so the best that we could do is a commitment in the end of February, beginning of March. All right, let's put it on paper and get it all written out. You know, you want to go buy a car, the specific car we had ordered. Now I think we're on the 3rd car we've ordered exactly how we want it from the manufacturer, because they don't make them option the way that we want to do, because they don't sell a bunch of them, because people are generally too scared about the money of all the options and stuff. And they're like, well, this car, I would never put that into this car or that car or whatever. Okay, cool. The vehicle that we want, we like this vehicle, we like it option this way. They don't generally make them as like a spec type vehicle in that aspect. So we have to order one in order to get exactly what we want. Could we get one in a different color and swap out these small details that to most people would go, yeah, whatever. It's still very like that vehicle that you wanted. Sure, 100%, and we could have it tomorrow. But if I settle on those decisions to have something similar to what I want tomorrow, then I give up on the decision of getting exactly what I want, what I deserve 6 months from now, because that was the timeline I wasn't willing to wait. So you sacrifice a small amount of time to get exactly what you want. You work 10, 12, 15 hours a day for 5 years so that you can live 60 years exactly how you want, where you want, when you want, not sick coach, fly first class. Eventually, first class is a pain in the ass. Buy a jet, don't buy a jet. You know, how do you have those conversations? My sister-in-law sends us, vacation homes for like $10 million. I'm like, cool, that's great. But our next purchase is a jet. Like, for $10 million, I can buy, it's $12 million for my jet. Why would I go buy this house when I could rent it and still have all the things that we're going to want? Because let's be honest, I'm not going to live there. We're going to go for a weekend here or there or whatever. So why not just spend 10 grand for the weekend and go rent that house then and still stack and make the decisions that we need to make to get and acquire the jet that we need to have, so that we can then not have to worry about the government, the president, the TSA, whoever's going to tell us when we can breathe or fart or piss, whatever the government action at that exact moment is no longer relevant, because we controlled our destiny by being disciplined in what we have going on right now, so that we can have exactly what we want then.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, a jet. Like, I don't know if that's not when you look back and say, okay, I made it, then I don't know what is. Jet is one of the having a jet's one of those things where it's like 10 million. That's a lot, but over time those things can get pretty expensive to just even own, just as far as inspections and stuff. But I mean, the practicality of it, like if it's like a business decision to get a jet, like you save so much time. Like you're saying, you don't have to wait through the lines in the airport, and you don't have to deal with all that extra stuff. So it can definitely be worth it for the certain people, not me now, but people in your circle. Yeah, that's awesome, man. If you were to like take all of this kind of information that you've talked about, what would you say is like the one message that would summarize it, like a characteristic that someone needs to have to be able to, go down this type of path? What would you say that characteristic is?
To go down the path of being an entrepreneur?
Yeah, just successful, wealthy in whatever way someone's trying to do it.
Well, success and wealth are all defined by in the eye of the beholder. So, I mean, it's a fully complicated question and answer to put in the way that you would think. It's I get that all the time. Hey, so what's the secret sauce? What do you got to do? Same shit. If you want to look into it and you read every single book on entrepreneurship, coaching, leadership, etc., They're all saying the same thing. It's going to be 10 times harder than you ever expect it to be. It's a book by Grant Cardone called 10X Rule. That's going to be your number one rule. If you're not willing to live, A, like a pauper for 5 years so that you can live like a king the rest of your life, and B, understand that you're going to get kicked in the teeth 10 times more than you've ever expected it to be. Problem is, if people going to get successful, they get 50%, 60, 70, 80, 90% of the way there. And at that point, they're going, I've pushed, I've persevered. It sucked for a year. I'm on year 2. It sucked for year 3. This happened. Something happened. I got sued and got bankrupt, and they take another swing and a miss. And then this happens. It's another swing and a miss. Now you're 4, 5, 6 times of where, the suck that you had originally in your head factored into how bad it's going to suck, the sacrifices that you're going to need to make in order to make it. When your reality is that if you're 80, 90% of the way there, if you flip the number, you're only 10% of the way from being successful in every aspect that you wanted to be. The problem is that when you get kicked in the teeth 9 times more than you thought it was, we're often to lose hope that we're ever going to become successful, and we give up on ourselves. We're willing to settle. Somebody's willing to walk in front of you and go, if I give you $100,000 cash today for whatever you have going on, instead of you making millions of dollars and having a jet, most people are going to go, most I've ever made in a year is $25,000, $30,000. $100,000 to me would be life-changing. And you would settle and take that $100,000 and walk away rather than continue getting kicked in the teeth day after day after day after day, sleeping on the floor, living in a 2-bedroom apartment for a year, whatever the sacrifice that you had to make in order to acquire that exact life that you had envisioned in your own mind as your ideal life. This is what I'm striving for. I know what I have to sacrifice in order to do it. In order to get this sacrifice, I'm going to get that thing. But if you give up between here and there, you're not going to ever get it. And then you're going to be one of the other sad sob stories that somebody said about how, oh, entrepreneurs aren't for everybody. This sucked, that sucked. You can't believe what I went through. Like, no, I fully know what you went through. The fact is that people don't realize that people with $50 million in the bank are sitting in a 2-bedroom, 800 square foot apartment talking to you on podcasts right now because they're not willing to do that for their $50,000 a year job, let alone have the money in the bank to be able to do that. But I know what I wanted. We come from a place of not settling. And if I'm not going to settle, this was one of the requirements for me to not settle in order to get what I wanted.
Yeah. I think
it's 10 times more than I would have thought it was going to suck every month.
Yeah. It's, I don't imagine it to be easy in any shape or form, but yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And that just motivates me to keep getting kicked in the teeth over and over. I'm welcoming getting kicked in the teeth now, but I think that's a good note to end this on, a message for people to take back. I really enjoyed talking to you today. I think you packed this full of value. Like every second, there's just advice, strategies, knowledge. So yeah, thanks for taking the time and sitting down in your closet to come on the Get Wealth podcast. Is there any like social media you want to plug or anything you want to have on here? I'll put it in the description.
Yeah, no, for sure. So the shirt I'm wearing right now says "My wife will cut you." So for those that are married, this is going to be one of those things for a shameless plug, right? So in exchange for me coming on and talking to all you guys right now, you got to listen to my 30-second elevator pitch.
Listen up.
In getting kicked in the teeth for 10 years, it's very easy for you to give up on yourself. And if you're not going to give up on yourself, a lot of times what you do is you hang all of your baggage on your spouse. I hung it all on mine. The beautiful catch-22 of the reasoning here that I'm still with and all the things, and I've exited my business is because my wife fortunately grabbed me and pulled me out of my business. She took me and said, "This is no longer a life. We have done it. The money's in the bank. We have all the things. We can do other things. You can stop making small decisions." And what happened was I was vomiting all of my normal slave drama from being a highly paid employee of my own businesses on her. I put everything on her. She had nowhere to go, no idea what to do, etc. So we started a coaching business, a brand that we coach couples now. So guys that are in the come up, they're in their 72-hour work days and all the things, and they don't ever see their family or their kids or whatever. We work hand in hand with them. She deals with the wife and kids and stuff. I deal with the husbands. We have 2 kind of separate groups built in within our package. It's $20 a month, but what ends up being is it's a tribe of people that are currently in that. I'm getting my teeth kicked in. I'm 8X from 10X, and I don't know what to do next. I don't know where to go next. whether it's just regular business advice like we're talking about right now, or it's my wife won't even look at me because I haven't been home in 5 days, 6, 7 days. We're working to communicate so that we can make sure that people become successful to that point of not sacrificing their relationships with their family and their kids. Buddy of mine, Sean Whalen, will tell you the same thing. 9 out of 10 successful people you will find in some way, shape, or form are in divorce, lost their kids, families, they're separated, all of the things. And the number one thing that they're going to tell you is, if I could just go back, I'd give it all away in order to have my family back. And being a guy that was as close as I was to losing my family and all the things like that in order to have the successful money life, we've now figured out that it's really not that hard to make $500 decisions, work a lot less, make more money, and delegate stuff than it was. It's an ego thing. And so coaching people to think that they got to work those hours and do those things no matter what, there's obviously square one, you have to. But somewhere between there and square 5 of 7, 8, somewhere in that realm is where we can start to work and, scaling things back, and everybody can sacrifice for a little while. But I was in the 10-year, 70 hours, crazy 90-hour a week work week. So website's mywifewillcutyou.com. We got cool merch. We got coaching stuff like I said there. That's where you can also get a hold of me or her for wives and things like that. So, somebody that's watching this and they're like, dude, my wife hates me. Cool, plug her in. Mine will grab everybody by the ear and either coach her on it's normal for her to feel that way. And hey, this is part of the deal. You want to have XYZ, and female tribes, sometimes they need that. My wife didn't have any of that. And so, communicating with her in the process of building out what we're trying to do right now with all this is just like, if I would have had something like this back then, we catch 22, I might still be a slave to my own business, but at least we wouldn't have had to hit the wall with the family.
Yeah. Wow, man, that's truly incredible. I think you're doing some really good things with that. And if for anybody watching that thinks that, I'm sure if they can't already tell that it's just out of the kindness of your heart, like $20 a month after everything you just said, like you're just providing free value. It seems like from that, even just from coming on my tiny little podcast, you're willing to talk to me for an hour and give me all this advice. So I can tell it genuinely comes from a good place, and everybody should go that needs to see if they can get involved with that. So it's been a pleasure to have you on, man. I really appreciate your time.
All right, Brad. Thank you very much. You have a good day.
You too. Get wealthy, everybody.